Stay behind me.
What if the one moment that bothered me in the Fallout Season 2 finale isn't actually a nitpick, but a crack that reveals what kind of show Fallout is quietly becoming? And yes, quick spoiler warning for the Season 2 finale before we get into it. If you're the type who likes sitting with a story after it ends, thinking through why something felt off instead of just moving on, you'll probably want to stick around. And if that's your vibe, you already know what this channel is about. Because here's the thing, I loved the finale. Genuinely. I think it was ambitious, confident, and emotionally grounded in a way that most genre shows struggle to pull off when they're juggling this many moving parts. Lucy and Maximus reuniting worked. The Ghoul finally getting answers after centuries of obsession worked. The Enclave, the Legion, the NCR, Robert House, the FEV, all of it felt like a deliberate tightening of the narrative rather than chaos for chaos's sake. And yet, there's one moment I can't quite shake. Not because it was bad television, but because it revealed a choice. A choice about danger, realism, and what kind of tension Fallout is willing or unwilling to sit with. I'm talking about the Deathclaw fight in Freeside. On paper, it should be one of the most intense sequences of the season. Deathclaws are not just monsters in Fallout. They're walking inevitabilities. They're the thing you run from, not the thing you posture against. They're supposed to feel like the wasteland itself turning hostile. And for a brief moment, the finale nails that feeling. Inside the enclosure, Maximus is overwhelmed. He's scrambling. He's fighting multiple Deathclaws at once, barely holding the line, getting tossed around like a rag doll. It's chaotic and scary and exhausting in the way these fights should be. You can feel how close he is to losing control. Then he gets thrown through the fence. And something strange happens. Outside the enclosure, the logic of the scene quietly changes. Instead of the pack surging through the breach, instead of overwhelming him the way they just did seconds earlier, the Deathclaws start approaching one at a time. Patiently, almost politely. Giving Maximus space, giving him time, giving the story room to let him look heroic. And that's where my brain tripped. Because Fallout has spent 2 seasons teaching us that the wasteland does not care about narrative convenience. People die suddenly. Plans collapse. Violence is rarely clean or fair. Survival often comes down to luck, timing, or moral compromise. So why, in this moment, does the show blink? At first glance, it's easy to shrug this off. It's television. It's choreography. It's budget. It's pacing. The scene needs to breathe. Maximus needs a win. Thaddeus needs his heroic entrance. The NCR needs to show up looking competent. All of that is true, but that doesn't mean it's meaningless. Because this isn't really about Deathclaws, it's about what kind of danger the show wants its characters to face going forward. Inside the fence, Maximus is reacting. Outside the fence, the world starts reacting to him. That's a subtle but important shift. Early Fallout thrives on the idea that heroism doesn't protect you. Lucy survives not because she's destined to, but because she adapts. The Ghoul survives not because he's powerful, but because he's endured. Maximus, especially, is defined by uncertainty. He's brave, but he's not invincible. He makes mistakes. He hesitates. He panics. The Deathclaw scene inside the enclosure reinforces that. He's outmatched. He's barely keeping up. The danger feels real because it's not tailored to him. Outside the enclosure, though, the danger becomes selective. The Deathclaws stop behaving like animals that were just shown coordinating as a pack and start behaving like obstacles in a video game queue. One comes forward, it dies. Another steps up, it dies. The tension drains not because the action is bad, but because the outcome becomes readable. And Fallout has been at its best when outcomes aren't readable. What makes this especially frustrating is that the show clearly knows how to do this better. We've seen it. Over and over. Quiet scenes where violence threatens but doesn't arrive. Sudden deaths that feel unfair. Conflicts that spiral out of control because nobody is fully in charge. So why soften this moment? I think the answer has less to do with spectacle and more to do with identity. By the finale, Maximus is no longer just a survivor. He's becoming a symbol. To Lucy. To the NCR. To the audience. He's stepping into a role that carries expectation. And expectations are dangerous in a show like this. Because once a character starts being framed as the one who holds the line, The world has to bend slightly to allow that image to exist. The Deathclaws don't rush him all at once because if they did, the show would have to let him lose or let the world feel genuinely uncontrollable again. And that's a scary place to go when you're setting up a larger, more structured conflict for Season 3. The finale is doing a lot of work. It's transitioning Fallout from a survival story to a geopolitical story, from wandering individuals to factions, alliances, and wars. That shift requires characters who can plausibly stand at the center of those conflicts, and that means danger has to become survivable. The irony is that this is exactly what the show itself has been warning us about. Fallout isn't subtle about its themes. It's a story about systems that promise safety in exchange for control. About worlds that feel stable only because the rules have been carefully managed. About danger being curated rather than eliminated. The Deathclaw fight feels like that philosophy creeping into the storytelling itself. The chaos is contained. The threat is paced. The violence is dramatic but controlled. Maximus is never truly overwhelmed once the story needs him to stand tall. That doesn't make the scene bad. But it does make it revealing. Because the question isn't, why didn't the Deathclaws attack all at once? The real question is, what would it mean for the show if they did? If Maximus barely survived, or didn't, if the NCR arrived too late, if the victory felt messy and incomplete, the finale would have carried a different energy, one less triumphant, more uncertain, more in line with the moral ambiguity Fallout usually thrives on. Instead, we get a clean beat, a heroic pause, a moment that tells us, very clearly, that Maximus is ready for the next stage of the story. And that's where my unease comes from, not because I don't want Maximus to grow, but because growth in Fallout has always come at a cost. Emotional, physical, ideological. When the world starts protecting characters from its own rules, something essential gets diluted. Compare this to Lucy's arc. Her victories rarely feel complete. Even when she succeeds, something is lost. A belief, a relationship, a piece of herself. The Ghoul's progress is even harsher. Every answer he gets strips away another illusion. Maximus, in this moment, gets something rare in Fallout. A clean win. And clean wins are dangerous in this universe. The show almost acknowledges this by surrounding the scene with heavier material. The looming wars, the return of old powers, the sense that history is repeating itself, not because people are evil, but because systems are comfortable. In that context, the Deathclaw fight feels like a pressure valve, a release of tension before things get darker, a reminder that our protagonists can still be heroes in a traditional sense. But that's also why it stands out, because Fallout has earned its tension by refusing to reassure us too much. The Deathclaws waiting their turn isn't just a staging issue. It's a tonal one. It's the show briefly choosing clarity over chaos, symbolism over threat, and inevitability over randomness. And maybe that's intentional. Maybe Season 3 is going to be about the illusion of control, about characters believing they've mastered the wasteland, only to discover they've underestimated it. Maybe this moment is the calm before the collapse, the false confidence before things spiral beyond anyone's ability to manage. I hope that's the case, because if Fallout leans too hard into curated danger, it risks becoming the very thing it critiques, a system that makes survival feel orderly, heroic, and earned, when in reality, it never is. The reason the Deathclaw scene lingers in my mind isn't because it was poorly done, it's because it felt like a promise that the show might be shifting how it treats its characters. And promises, in Fallout, are always worth questioning. The finale sets the board beautifully. It brings everyone where they need to be. It reminds us that the past isn't dead, that power doesn't vanish, and that wars don't start with explosions. They start with certainty, which is why I'm holding on to this discomfort. Because if Season 3 takes that certainty away again, if it lets danger feel unfair, overwhelming, and indifferent, then this moment will feel like a deliberate contrast. But if it doesn't, then the most frightening thing in Fallout won't be Deathclaws, or armies, or old-world tech. It'll be the idea that the wasteland has finally learned how to play nice with its heroes.